Hello ladies and gentlemen and movie lovers of all kind, and welcome back to the channel. As always, I am your host, Brett Murphy, and for today's video it is going to be another Cinema Showdown. And it is going to be Doctor Strange versus Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Yes, today we are going to be comparing and contrasting an original and its recently released sequel. Because just this past weekend, Disney and Marvel Studios finally released Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. And this movie is absolutely blowing up at the box office right now, so I figured why not look back and see how it compares to its 2016 predecessor. As always with these Cinema Showdown versus videos, I will be comparing and contrasting these two movies in this case across 5 rounds to determine one winner. I would also like to take this time right now to issue a major spoiler warning. Yes, indeed, there will be major spoilers ahead for both of these movies, so if you have not seen Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness yet, well, you have been warned. Before I hop into the actual showdown itself, I just wanted to let you all know that I have an entire playlist dedicated to all of my Cinema Showdown versus videos, so be sure to check that out and I guarantee you'll find something you like. And so without further ado, let's hop right into things. Round 1. Characters. For this round, I will be discussing both the main and supporting characters, as well as the movie's villains. This first Doctor Strange movie was of course our introduction to Benedict Cumberbatch as Dr. Stephen Strange. Alongside him on this trippy psychedelic journey are Tilda Swinton as the Ancient One, which I might add was a very controversial casting. Benedict Wong as Wong, Chiwetel Ejiofor as Mordo, Rachel McAdams as fellow doctor and love interest Christine, and the always entertaining Mads Mikkelsen as the villain Caecilius. There's also Dormammu, but I mean he's in like the last 5 minutes of the movie and is just a giant CGI head, so not much of a villain there. Multiverse of Madness brings back many of the same players. Benedict Cumberbatch of course returns as Doctor Strange, Benedict Wong now as Sorcerer Supreme Wong, and Rachel McAdams as Christine. It introduces us to Xochitl Gomez as the multiverse-hopping and scene-stealing America Chavez, and also brings back Elizabeth Olsen as the one and only Wanda Maximoff, aka the all-powerful Scarlet Witch. Not to mention, even if it may not have been as many as we were hoping for, yes, there are some pretty big cameos. Patrick Stewart returns as Professor X, Chiwetel Ejiofor returns as Mordo, Lashana Lynch as Captain Marvel, Haley Atwell as Captain Carter, Anson Mount as Black Bolt, and then of course the longtime fan-casted John Krasinski as Reed Richards, aka Mr. Fantastic. We also can't forget the Sam Raimi staple, Bruce Campbell as the Pizza Papa. Though we really could sit here all day and debate which movie Cumberbatch, Wong, McAdams, and Ejiofor are better in, there is no question at all that Wanda was indeed the better villain and her performance was phenomenal. America Chavez was an exceptional new addition that helps to further open up multiverse possibilities in the future, and then on top of that, of course, you also throw in those big cameos, so it looks like I'm going to have to be giving this first round to Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Round 2. Plot and Storytelling. The first Doctor Strange movie follows the arrogant, egotistical, and narcissistic Dr. Stephen Strange, who finds himself lost and alone when a car accident destroys his ability to use his hands. In search of a way to get his hands back so he can continue his career, he travels the world until he reaches the doorstep of Kamar-Taj, and the world of the mystic arts. This story is a far more basic romp than that of its successor. It's a streamlined, albeit effective origin story that, at least at the time, did wonders for expanding the MCU. It gave us both Doctor Strange, who has since become a major player, and introduced us to the mystic arts within the MCU. Sadly, the reception to Multiverse of Madness' story has been a bit more of a mixed bag, as most people seem to be pointing towards the plot and storyline as the main issue with the movie. This time around, a young multiverse-hopping hero by the name of America Chavez stumbles into the MCU that we know, and the evil creatures that have been sent to capture her quickly follow. This catches the attention of Doctor Strange, who vows to protect the girl from these malevolent forces and the one who sent them. Even though I personally really did enjoy this movie and felt that the plot was a bit more inventive, it does indeed come off as a bit messy. The beginning feels rushed and the ending feels abrupt and underwhelming. Though I must say that I did find this story to still be surprisingly grounded and its themes to be deeper and more personal. This round wasn't really as easy as it seems, but not really for the right reasons. The first Doctor Strange had a more basic plot but stronger storytelling. Multiverse of Madness had the deeper themes, the more creative plot, but messy, rushed, and underwhelming storytelling. It really is a dealer's choice kind of situation. Though I do believe that both movies still have their merits story-wise, I'll be giving this second round to Doctor Strange. Round 3. Action and Visuals. Right out of the gate, in this first Doctor Strange movie, we are treated to the most unique fight sequence in the MCU at that time. Buildings twisting and turning and all sorts of weird otherworldly stuff. In general, the action sequences were more creative. The mystic arts were used very effectively. We got the thrilling chase and trippy visuals within the mirror dimension, spells being casted left, right, and center, the astral projection fight sequence, and plenty of perplexing and mind-melting visuals. The action sequences within this first movie were also fairly frequent and blended both the magical abilities as well as hand-to-hand combat. The visuals were also immaculate, with some of the key standout sequences being Doctor Strange's first trip through the multiverse, the fight and chase sequence within the mirror dimension, and the final bit within Dormammu's dark dimension. Multiverse of Madness was no slouch in the action or visuals departments either. There were some big action sequences, like the opening scene with the squid Cyclops monster, Wanda attacking Kamar-Taj, Wanda versus the cameo heroes, and Wanda versus Doctor Strange on multiple occasions. Some of these action sequences were exceptional, but others left me wanting a bit more. Although this movie definitely does do a good job at showing just how powerful Wanda really is. But I did also find that Doctor Strange's magic wasn't really used all that frequently. At least some of the abilities and spells that we know he has from things like Avengers Infinity War. And with that, I felt that he came off as super weak and severely underpowered. There were no trips to the mirror dimension, there were no astral projections, and no Inception level buildings and cities twisting and turning. I really do feel like the action sequences suffered from not having that stuff in it, because that's what made the first Doctor Strange and Doctor Strange as a character in general so beloved, creative, and unique. The visuals in this movie though were still fantastic, and the visual storytelling was incredibly unique. Sam Raimi definitely has an eye for this kind of stuff. Pretty much anything with Wanda, like her mind battle with Professor X, or her doing the dream walking, or even something like zombie Doctor Strange using Souls of the Damned as a damn cape. Multiverse of Madness is easily one of the best looking MCU movies, but there really was nothing quite as trippy and mind-blowing as we got in the first Doctor Strange movie, especially when experiencing that movie for the very first time. It was something that we never truly saw before within the MCU and still haven't really seen like this since. There really hasn't been any other movie in the MCU quite as wild and wonderful visually. When it comes to the action though, Multiverse of Madness did have the bigger sequences, but I do also feel that most of them underwhelmed. And Doctor Strange himself, at least to me, felt severely underpowered. The first Doctor Strange had more frequent action, blended the mystic arts and hand-to-hand combat, and also had the more unique fight sequences. Therefore, I'm going to be giving this third round to Doctor Strange. Round 4. Direction and Style. Scott Derrickson sat in the director's chair for Doctor Strange's first outing, and I want to say right out of the gate that I think that Scott Derrickson is a great director. He really is, and I personally love his work. But I do feel that despite a lot of the positives that I just highlighted for this movie in previous rounds, this does end up being a pretty average MCU romp aside from the visuals. The visuals, of course, once again, are immaculate and really in a league of their own when it comes to the MCU. But I just don't really see much of Derrickson's style in here. There's nothing that makes me stop and think, like, yeah, this is a Scott Derrickson movie. Like I said, he is an excellent director, but he does definitely do his best work in the horror genre. And I love his work there. The Exorcism of Emily Rose, Sinister, and Deliver Us from Evil, and I am fully expecting to love The Black Phone as well, as it is one of my most anticipated for this year. There weren't many of those horror elements in this first movie, and when he wanted to incorporate more of them in the sequel, he parted ways with the studio over creative differences because they just didn't want that. Now, I'm just going to come out and say this. I personally believe that Multiverse of Madness is likely the most uniquely directed movie in the MCU to date. From the editing, to the cinematography, to the visual style, to the Danny Elfman score, this has Sam Raimi written all over it. Of course, there are other MCU flicks that were similarly uniquely directed, like Guardians of the Galaxy and Thor Ragnarok. But after those movies debuted, it seemed like every other MCU movie that followed wanted to try and replicate that style. This movie, however, is undeniably and unmistakably Sam Raimi. There are just so many of his staples. His fingerprints are truly all over it, and that is a big part as to why I loved this movie so much. Yes, I do believe that there are some sequences that have been interjected in there that were mandated by Marvel Studios, and I feel as if I can pick those out, but there's no denying that this is still very much so a Sam Raimi movie. Again, both of these men are exceptional directors, and I have the utmost respect for each of them. But something tells me that Scott Derrickson really did not have all that much freedom when directing Doctor Strange. And when he wanted to do something different within the sequel and have a bit more of the creative input, it got shut down, so he left. But there is no doubt in my mind at all that Multiverse of Madness is a Sam Raimi movie. Yes, there were reshoots, like there are for pretty much every big budget movie, and I feel like I can point out which ones were reshot. You know, it's the stuff that's just a bit more traditional MCU. But aside from those few small instances, I really do feel that from start to finish, this is a Sam Raimi movie through and through. So I am going to be giving this fourth round to Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Final round. Universe expansion and memorability. This final round is definitely going to be the toughest, but here goes. The first Doctor Strange movie introduced us to the world of the mystic arts. It also had the most unique visuals in the MCU at that time, and arguably still does even now. And then of course it introduced us to Benedict Cumberbatch as the iconic hero, Doctor Strange. As for memorability, the main things that people look back on fondly within this movie are two things that I just mentioned. The visuals, and Cumberbatch taking on the fan favorite and highly anticipated role. There wasn't really a memorable villain, nor a big epic final battle, nor any really groundbreaking or universe-altering stuff except for the introduction of the mystic arts to the MCU. Multiverse of Madness introduced us to our latest hero, America Chavez, who has the ability to travel between universes at will. Alongside that, it further explores the multiverse and its endless possibilities, even if they weren't on full display in this movie in particular. On top of this, it also furthers or possibly concludes Wanda's character arc, which has been among the MCU's best to date. Truly, she is the most powerful character right now, and her story is a real heartbreaker. It deepens Doctor Strange as a character while also setting up his next major arc. Then of course you have the cameos. Again, even if there weren't as many as people were hoping for. And in my mind, it is undoubtedly the most uniquely directed MCU movie yet. Both of these movies did wonders for expanding the MCU, and gave us plenty of memorable characters and moments. But in my mind, even if Multiverse of Madness didn't meet everyone's expectations, especially when it comes to the multiverse itself and the cameos, it still gave us America Chavez, Wanda as the villain, but also still the character that we've come to love. It further deepens Doctor Strange as a character. Then you throw in the cameos on top of all of that, and this being what I believe to be the most uniquely directed MCU movie to date. Ladies and gentlemen, I think my mind is made up. I'm going to be giving this fifth and final round and the crown to Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. So that is all for today's video, folks. Be sure to let me know down in the comments if you agree or disagree with my winner. While you're at it, feel free to let me know who you would have chosen to win each round and what Cinema Showdown you'd like to see me do next. If you enjoyed that video, be sure to hit that thumbs up button. And if you'd like to see more content, consider subscribing to my channel and ringing that little bell icon. That way you can be notified about all of my latest uploads. And as always, stay safe. Thank you so much for watching. And that's a wrap. Hey you, yeah you, if you made it this far, just know I appreciate you, and while you're here, consider hitting that subscribe button.